Listen.
Welcome to Real Deal, Real Deal, Real Deal, Real Deal, Real Deal. Joining me today are the happy pair. Welcome to Real Deal. Welcome to Real Deal. I am Brian Rose, and we are live here at London Real World headquarters to talk about how our politicians have failed us and the devastating effects of the long-term lockdown. Here we are now in Britain in the middle of our third national lockdown. And this is the strictest we have ever seen in Britain's history. This is stricter restrictions than even the 1940 Blitz when this city was being bombed. This is how bad it's gotten. We're not allowed to send our children to school. We are also not allowed to go to work. We are not allowed to leave our homes except for essential services. And of course, businesses are closed. And this is really at nightmare proportions. And we've been sold this concept of a lockdown by our mainstream media and our governments based on just a few numbers that they kind of bandy about every day and put in front of us. And by using those numbers, they get us to comply to what I want to show you today is very dangerous long-term behavior. I'm talking about orders of magnitude of lives lost from what we're currently experiencing, mental health issues, economic issues, and actually lives lost. And that's what I want to talk about today, because this is one of the numbers that you get to see every single day. And this is something actually that I took today from The Guardian, which is one of the many mainstream media publications. And you'll see here the numbers that they put out, which is the number of new cases, 52,000, the number of people in hospital, 30,000, the number of daily deaths because of COVID, just over 1,000 there. And again, those are daily deaths that tested positive in the past 30 days. And these numbers are thrown in front of us as a causality for the lockdown. But before we do that, I just want to say that the lockdowns were never intended to stop the spread of the disease. And if you remember back in March, we were asked to go through a 2-week lockdown period to quote unquote protect the NHS. Now at the time, we didn't know what was going on, and it all seemed like a good idea to be extra safe, especially in the beginning. The problem is we've now been trained that that is the reason for a lockdown. And we've been told that it's being used to prevent the spread of the virus. And what our politicians now do is they say, protect the NHS, and they use that guilt trip to get us to comply when it's in fact their fault from 10 years of poor funding that the NHS is struggling right now. And when you even go to the World Health Organization's own Dr. Nabarro, he says, quote, "We really do appeal to all world leaders, stop using lockdown as your primary method of control." He goes on to say further, quote, "Lockdowns have just one consequence that you must never, ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer." And this is the basis of what I want to talk about today. And it's not just about money, because by being poor and by seeing that GDP go down, you're going to see how it costs real lives, hundreds of thousands of lives that they're not talking about and they're not accounting for. And I think it was Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is repeating the same behavior and expecting a different result. And that's what we see going on with these lockdowns. And I remember over Christmas, I said to everyone, it's very possible that next Christmas, 2021, we're going to be in the same situation or worse. And a lot of people said, come on, Brian, this will be over by then. Will it be over by then? Or will we keep using this same blunt instrument to solve a very complicated problem? And that's what we're seeing right now. Again, there are better solutions out there. And I've spoken with incredible people here on my platform, London Real, from doctors, scientists, Nobel Prize winners. One of those is Dr. Martin Kulldorff, who is a medical doctor at Harvard. And he has a concept of focused protection. And this is all about protecting those most vulnerable, like the elderly, and then also allowing those fit and able to get out there and work and live and create the economy that we need to power our NHS and to power our other services. And I want to talk about that today. Unfortunately, we get shown this number every day, and it's short-term consequences, and we are being asked to do things that have long-term issues based on these daily figures. And I'm going to show you why that is a big, big mistake. So today, I've got 3 parts. I want to talk about the cost-benefit analysis of this current national Tier 5 lockdown, the strictest that we've ever seen in history. The first point I want to make to you is this, and pay attention to the number I'm about to hit you with. 560,000 deaths are predicted from the lockdown alone. Yes, you heard me right. That's over 500,000 deaths from just locking down the country. And that's a number that we just don't focus on. That's a number that is greater than the total number of deaths that the UK suffered in military and civilian numbers in the Second World War. Think about that. Think about the devastating loss of life in the Second World War for Britain. We are predicting numbers worse than that just because of the lockdown scenario, and I'm going to go through the math with you shortly. We're also seeing grim forecasts predicting 3 million unemployed people in Britain this year, and I'm going to show you why this makes sense, which is this. The richer a country, the longer that people live, and the poorer a country, the shorter they live. And that's how these numbers break down to be so big, and I'm going to go into the details. The next thing I want to talk about today is the cost of mental health in a long-term lockdown. We've all experienced this, and I'm going to actually be asking for your input on all of my live feeds right now to find out how have you been suffering mentally from the lockdown. And let's be honest, we've all suffered mentally. I have, my wife has, my children have, my team has, all of us are struggling. But when you start to quantify it and look at the numbers, it's shocking, and it's something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about as opposed to that daily number they keep putting in front of your face. New cases, hospitalizations, COVID-qualified deaths, which can mean a lot of different things. And that's getting you to engage in a behavior that's crushing your mental health in a long term. And I'm going to show you why we see increasing depression with levels doubling nationally since our February pre-COVID lockdown conditions. I'm going to show you how we've seen a 73% surge in eating disorders and an even higher increase for our younger children and younger generation. I'm also going to show you how we've seen an increase in anxiety, in loneliness, in panic, in hopelessness. And finally, I'm going to talk about something that no one likes to talk about, and it's really hard to talk about, and that is a jump in our suicide rate. It's really approaching a 20-year high. Finally, I want to talk about what is the cost when it comes to jobs and the economy of the long-term lockdown. A lot of us know what's happening, but we are currently in our worst recession in 300 years. Yes, we are. Next, we've seen the highest job losses in history. And finally, people's savings are rapidly dropping, and we're seeing the lowest buying of cars and homes in a decade, and evictions and homelessness are now at nightmare proportions. Finally, not to leave everything on a totally depressive note, I want to show you my solutions. I have a plan for all of this, and the more I learn about politics and policies, the more I learn that the answers are simple and they can be fixed very quickly. It just needs leadership, it needs education, it needs innovation, and it needs a politician that doesn't use fear as a tool to control you every single day. And I want to talk about my policy of Get London Back to Work, a policy that everyone I speak to believes in and wants me to execute on right now. This is from people I meet in the street, taxi cab drivers, entrepreneurs, people in the theater industry, people I've had on this show from the Bank of England. They all believe in my Get Back to Work policy, and I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about how I'm going to put science first and use the data to make decisions as opposed to finding the data for the decisions. That's what politicians do now. And of course, I want to talk about how we can put our health first. These are my plans as your next mayor of London, and that's going to happen on May 6th, which is less than 4 months away, and I'm going to talk about how you can be a part of it. Before we get started, I want to hear from you. This is a live broadcast. I am going to be reading all of your comments out here on the iPad, so, be nice to me. But type in your comment right now and answer these 4 questions. First of all, do you think the current national Tier 5 lockdown, the strictest in British history, is the solution to the virus, and why? Next, do you think the long-term death count due to lockdown will be bigger than the short-term amount of lives that we are being told is being saved by the current measures, and why? Third, do you believe that lockdown causes depression or mental health issues that will hurt us more in the long term, and are you suffering too? Please be honest with me. I will be honest with you. And finally, I want you to tell me, do you think we need new leadership, new vision, and new ideas to take our cities and country in a new direction? Please type in wherever you're watching me now, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere, and they're going to be coming in right here to my iPad. As I said earlier, on May 6th, I plan to become your next mayor of London. I am so excited to take on this role and move London in a new direction. I believe that we can make London a world-class city once again. And so we've embarked on this adventure. We have been working on this for the past 6 months, detailed policies and videos, 12 different policies that are all on my website, brianformayor.london. And I've been going out into the boroughs, speaking with people and listening to them. And it's been an incredible experience. And my job is to find out what are the challenges of the 9 million citizens here in London, and then to serve them by solving their problems, period. This is apparently a new concept in politics, to actually listen to the citizens and make decisions in your best interests, not in the best interests of the two-party system, not in the best interests of these career politicians, not in the best interests of their corporate donors and their backroom deals. I don't believe that's what politics is about. I believe it's about the best idea. The best idea should always win, and that's the way I'm going to approach this role. And let's be honest, as you know, we are being very successful, and it's thanks to you. If it wasn't for the support I'm getting here in London, in the UK, and actually all over the world, we wouldn't now be in second place and moving into first. And I'll show you the proof right here. This is a screenshot I took from Paddy Power, which is, I think, the largest bookmaker in the world, that shows me a clear second to the incumbent mayor. That's a 3-to-1 shot. And it also shows clearly that the conservative candidate is a 17-to-1 long shot. 17-to-1, this is a party with hundreds of years of history, tens of millions of pounds in financing, with an infrastructure, with probably thousands of people to make this happen. And yet, the people have already spoken. They prefer my ideas, which reflect your needs and wants, more so than this conservative candidate. And I appreciate that endorsement, but we are not here to come in second. Let me be clear. We are here to win, because that's the only way we can change the city. Imagine 3 more years of the current leadership in London. Seriously, imagine it. I couldn't live with myself. So we are doing everything possible to win this race. And once we win it, to change this city for the long term. I've got long-term visions for this city, 20, 30, 40-year visions. Again, it's unlike you've ever seen anything like this in politics, because I'm here to make changes for the city I love and the city that's given me so much. 20 years of my life has been given to me by the City of London, the best years of my life. My children were born here. My business is called London Real because this city means so much to me, and I'm going to give it back starting on May 7th, the day after the elections. So we're doing it. Next, I want to tell you about something super exciting, and that is the Brian for Mayor Battle Bus. It's true, you've got to get on the Brian bus, and here's a picture of this beautiful bus. And we are going to be visiting every single borough in the City of London. That's 32 boroughs plus the City of London. I want to come see you. I'm going to talk to you. And most importantly, I'm going to listen to you. It's a concept you've probably never heard of from your politicians and elected leaders. I'm going to listen, and then I'm going to serve you. And then when I'm done serving, I'm going to listen again and find the other ways to serve you. That's my plan. And that's why I'm going to be driving this bus coming to see a borough near you. So if you want to find out my plan of travel and when I'm coming to see you, go to brianformayor.london. You get all the information on the website. You can also sign up to volunteer for our campaign on the volunteer page. We've got a whole group of people that all want to be a part of this. They want new ideas, fresh thinking, and they realize the position we're in right now is because of a few failed leaders. That's it. We can get out of it very quickly if we act fast. The final thing I want to talk about is your democratic right to vote. And this is something that in our G20 nations around the world, we oftentimes take for granted. Voting, I was busy that day. I'll get around to it. My vote's not going to matter. The truth is, many countries in the world, they do not have a democratic process that works. We do in this country, but it only works if you vote. Let me give you a statistic. Of the 9 million citizens in London, only 5.7 million of those are actually registered to vote. Can you imagine? All you have to be is a resident of London. That's it. You don't have to be a citizen of the UK. Out of those 5.7, do you know how many actually voted for the last mayoral race? Just over 2.5 million. That's it. That's a small percentage, less than a third of the total number of citizens here. So if we can get people to register to vote the people that believe in these new ideas, we can win this race. And that's why we've created this incredible new website called Vote First. And if you go right now to votefirst.london, within 300 seconds, yes, that's 5 minutes, you can register to vote. You'll get a letter in the post, and you'll be ready to go on May 6th to vote for your next mayor of London, or wherever you are in the country, you can vote in your local elections. It's very important to exercise the democratic process, because if you don't vote, then you are basically giving up your chance to decide the people that represent your views. They represent you and how your future is going to be, the future of your business, your health, your children, their education. And if you choose to opt out of that process, well, guess what? For the next 3 years, you have to own that decision, because you were complicit in whoever got elected. This is not the time to sit on the sidelines. Register now, share this website with your friends, make sure they're ready to vote. This is probably the only way we can win this race, is if people like you right now listening to me register to vote, and we get new people to register, and we make a whole wave of people that want to make change. So that's what's going on here at London Real. I'm super excited. Please share those assets. Let's talk about what we all came here to talk about today, and that is this. I want to start out with my first point, and that is this. What is the cost in lives of a long-term lockdown? Let's really look at that. And let's first look at the numbers that we are shown every single day, which are these daily statistics that get pushed on our websites and on the front page of our newspapers, and you can see some of these statistics now. This is exactly what was on the front page of The Guardian, one of the mainstream media outlets here in the UK, and there it is, 52,000 new cases, 30,000 in hospital, 1,162 COVID deaths, which means you died and tested positive for COVID in the past 28 days. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of that figure. You could have caught COVID in the hospital. You could have died from another reason. These are COVID-related deaths. Let's assume that those numbers are correct. We are making long-term decisions now for our economy, for our mental health, for our children's future, based on a daily number. Let's just take a step back and question the logic of that. All right, let's question the logic of that. First of all, let's look at some other daily numbers that we're familiar with. If you look at the total deaths here in the UK from something like smoking in a year, many days it's 10 times the number of COVID deaths. If you look at something like heart disease, many days that is 10 times the number of COVID deaths. If you look at things like Alzheimer's, many days it's 10 times the number of COVID deaths. But we focus on the COVID numbers, and all of our behavior is based on one figure that does not actually represent the total death toll. Imagine if we focused on smoking deaths in this country, and we locked down the country to prevent smoking. We locked down tobacco shops. We prevented you from lighting up. We could probably make a significant improvement in smoking deaths. Does that make sense to lock down the country for that reason? I think we'd all would agree it doesn't. And that's why we don't want to make long-term decisions based on short-term statistics. And again, if you look at what we do incredibly as humans, we make long-term decisions. When you build a hospital, you're thinking about a 20 or 30 or a 40-year horizon. Is that hospital going to be effective in that area of the city? When you build a university, like Oxford is your example, they were thinking hundreds of years in advance. We're going to spend a lot of money to build an institution that's going to educate children that will spend 10 or 20 years in these institutions. Again, more long-term thinking that always has brought prosperity in this country. So we have a great habit in this country of thinking long-term. That's why we build highway systems, infrastructure, because we think long-term, except for today. These days, we are basing all of our long-term implications on a number that comes out every single day. So let's now think about what those decisions are going to cost us. Here's a headline, and brace yourself for it because it's shocking. The Daily Mail recently came out with an article, and I'll read it for you, and it says this. Lockdown will claim the equivalent of 560,000 lives because of the health impact of the deep and prolonged recession it will cause. Now, this is according to research from Professor Philip Thomas of Bristol University, and he is saying there is a demonstrable link between a country's wealth and the life expectancy of its citizens. Or to put it simply, the richer a country, the longer its people live. And on that same note, the poorer a country, the shorter the people live. And we see this all the time. You can explain it you can actually explain 80% of the variation in life expectancy between different nations. Look at something like India, or a country like South Africa, or a country in Asia versus, say, a country like the UK or America. You can really correlate the life expectancy down to the economics of that country, and that makes sense. More money, better access to healthcare, better access to education. It's correlated and it makes a difference. And yet no one is talking about that as we watch our economy go down the drain during this Tier 5 lockdown that suspended all business and all human activity. And so the professor goes on to say, quote, a sustained lockdown would lead to economic output slumping to around 9% lower than normal, which is exactly what we saw last year, actually more like 11%. With grim forecasts predicting 3 million unemployed to be caused by COVID. All of this will reduce each person's life by 4 months on average. This is exactly what Professor Philip Thomas is saying of Bristol University. Now, as he goes on in this article, he says, quote, this might not sound like a great deal on first hearing. He's talking about 4 months. But when you multiply that by Britain's population of 67 million, the number of average lives lost comes to 560,000 average lives lost. And here is a summary of his calculations. And you can see these numbers up here. I'll walk you through them. That's 67 million people here in the UK. Times 4 months less on your life, which is 0.34 years. That means 23 million total years lost. Now, if you look at the average age of remaining life expectancy here in Britain, it's 42 years. It's kind of about the average age of the person and the average life expectancy. If you divide that into 23 million, you get the 560,000 lives lost. And that is greater than the total deaths in the Second World War that the UK suffered in military and civilian. It's a massive number. And yet we are doing that to ourselves right now as we speak. And no one is paying attention to it. Imagine that. Imagine if that number came up every day and we could see how many people were dying for lockdown. Do you think we would stay in lockdown? Do you think our politicians would continue pursuing this agenda? I don't think so. But we focus on that one metric, and all of our behavior is around that one metric. And again, just to go a little bit further, the professor arrived at that figure, again, by looking at the total number of years to be lost by that population and then dividing by 42, which gives us, which is the remaining life expectancy of the British people today. And that's what he calls the average lives lost. He goes on to say this, even if the UK ends up suffering 250,000 UK COVID deaths, okay, that's a massive number, probably, what is that, 1.5x times what's been reported right now. Even if it's that, he said that's only the equivalent of 45,000 average lives lost because of how many years you have left when you die. And the truth is that many of the people dying often have only 1 or 2 or 3 years left of life. He said, so the equivalent of that is only 45,000 average lives lost. And if you look at that number, you get the final punchline, which is this. That number is less than 10% of the equivalent loss of life that this nation is going to suffer by this prolonged lockdown. 10%. And we really need to think about that number right now. We really need to think about that. And again, any death is tragic. No human being would disagree against that. But again, lockdown is not the method to control this. It's not the method to control this. And we're looking at potentially saving 45,000 average lives lost, or you are potentially losing 560,000 lives with this current lockdown scenario. And so the truth is this, our politicians, they need to start using the science. They need to start using the data. Our former Prime Minister, Theresa May, stood up in the Houses of Parliament just months ago and said directly, it seems that the politicians are finding the data to support their policies rather than creating policies based on the data. The former Prime Minister of the Conservative Party said this about our own Prime Minister in the Conservative Party. They are not using science the way they should be. They need to look at the long-term prospects of this. The truth is, the government has refused to release a cost-benefit analysis of this lockdown. They've refused to release it. They've refused to calculate it. And all they do is show you that figure every day. They tell you to protect the NHS, to protect grandma, and they get you to submit to these ridiculous lockdowns. And I want to play for you now a video that was a conversation I had with Professor David Miles, who's an OBE. He works at Imperial College, former Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee member. This guy is a high-level economist. And we were speaking back in November. And I'm going to play for you this short 1-minute clip, and it's actually a bit shocking to listen to, because at that time we were in our second national lockdown. And he said, if this goes any more than 4 weeks, which is what it was planned, he said, the cost benefit will never make sense. There is no way we can justify another lockdown after that. And he says that specifically. This is in November. And where are we now in January? We have been told 3 months more of Tier 5 lockdown, directly against one of the most senior economists in this country. So I want to play for this video for you. Before I do, I want you to answer these questions. Do you think the current national Tier 5 lockdown, the strictest in UK history, is the solution to the virus, and why? Second, do you think the long-term death count due to lockdown will be bigger than the short-term amount of lives that we are being told we are saving right now because of the lockdown? Third, is lockdown causing depression or mental health issues that will hurt us more in the long term? And be honest, are you suffering from this as well? And finally, do you think we need new leadership, new vision, and new ideas to take us in a new direction? Please leave me your comments below. Watch this video now from Professor Miles.
Continuing to have blanket lockdowns switched on for a few months, then maybe off for a month or so, then switch them back on, is so costly that my guess is that that would not pass any sensible cost-benefit analysis. Again, to stress, that's not the current government strategy. We're told that this is going to be a 4-week lockdown. Hopefully it will succeed in bringing the infection rates down very rapidly, take off the table much of the risk of hospitals being overwhelmed. And that might well be a sensible strategy. I think what wouldn't be, though, is if we kept getting back into this situation, 2 months on, 1 month off, 2 months on, 1 month off. I think that would be pretty disastrous.
And there is the professor. I mean, speaking frankly, we were in the middle of that 4-week lockdown by saying there's no way this can continue. It makes no economic sense, and there's no possible way our government will do this because the cost benefit does not make sense. And here we are again into a lockdown 3 times the size of what we were going through in November. Again, I'd love to hear your comments right now, so please type them in on whatever platform you're at, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I want to hear from you. And I'm going to read these out. Great comments coming through here. We got Wes Burns on IG saying, Brian Rose for Prime Minister, real talk. All right, thank you. I appreciate very much. Mayor is the plan right now. We got Range Rover Girl 7 on IG says, go Brian. Thank you very much. We've got Hubert Daniel on Instagram saying, love you, Brian. Grateful. Thank you very much. I'm grateful to you too as well. We got Joe Windsor 1970 on Instagram saying, Brian Rose for London Mayor. Thank you, sir. That is the plan. We plan on winning in 4 months' time, but we need your vote. Alaska Denali on YouTube says, Brian, thank you. I appreciate you. James Wilson on YouTube says, you legend. Great work. Thank you, James. It's due to all the work that we're doing behind the scenes, so I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Born in the Wrong Country 27 on Instagram says, Brian for Mayor. Thank you. Lisa Bennett on Instagram says, never mind running for London Mayor, Brian. We need you as Prime Minister. I appreciate the sentiment. Let's sort out London first. Great to London on Instagram says, Brian, London needs you. And I would agree with you. London needs me. And honestly, I owe London. I cannot sit by and watch this current crop of politicians run the city I love into the ground. And neither should you. So get registered to vote, and let's change that on May 6th. Couple other comments coming in here. Equinox95 on YouTube says simply, quote, get Sadiq Khan out. That's what he says. And honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. Every single person I meet on the streets says the same thing to me. They say, I don't like this guy. He lies to us. He passes the buck. He blames everyone else. We need to get him out. So let's get those votes and we can make it happen. I got Mixed Origin on Instagram says, quote, how they, which mean our politicians, failed us. How long do you have? And it's true. It's really curious on how much longer we're going to give them until they can finally make a decision. They seem to be bungling everything every 48 hours. And if you look at the track record, it's shocking. One day they say schools are open. The next day they say schools are closed. One day they say lockdown is ridiculous. This is our Prime Minister speaking to the Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer. Weeks later, he's locking our economy down. It's duplicitous, and we should no longer accept it. And if you register to vote, you can be part of that decision. It's that simple. If you don't vote for me, I can't make these changes. So let's make it happen. We've got Kashin Service on IG saying the world needs to change. I agree. I think we're the voice for a lot of people that are feeling this all around the world. I've got Amberoni71 on Instagram saying, quote, lockdown is worse than the virus. I couldn't agree more. J Jones PT on Instagram says, quote, as much as I hate being in lockdown, I own 5 gyms in London, but we have no voice. I'm so angry. And Jay, I'm glad you brought that up. And our good friend Nick Whitcomb is up in Merseyside near Liverpool, and he has been the one fighting to keep gyms open. And I want to mention him later on in this broadcast. Finally, a few other comments coming through here, and please leave me your comments on these platforms. I got Nishi Psychologist on Instagram says, quote, people are mentally stuck. I couldn't agree more, and I want to talk about that right now. Ant's Pet on Instagram says, quote, a friend of mine has taken his life because of the situation. The poor man just couldn't cope. And I'm really sorry to hear that, Ant. It's really hard to look at these suicide statistics that I'm going to share with you because these are real people that could have been saved if we didn't make these terrible decisions. So let's change this. Let's honor his life by making these changes. And I appreciate you, and I'm sorry for your loss. We've got Arc Iron on Everlifter on Instagram says, quote, my mental health has definitely suffered. My alcohol consumption has gone up, and I'm trying to cut down, but it's getting harder. And Arc, I appreciate your honesty. I really do. I struggled with alcohol for a long part of my life. I was fortunate enough to really kick it about 3 years ago. But I know if I hadn't of, this time would have really challenged me. I know it would have. And also, if I didn't have a purpose right now to really lead this city in a new direction, I would have been really struggling with this right now. I appreciate your honesty. I know a lot of us are struggling with substances, with depression, with anxiety. I appreciate you being honest, and let's find some solutions. I think that's really important. Finally, we've got Avis on Instagram saying, quote, I've never suffered from mental health, but recently I cannot cope with life. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to. And I think you said it right there. That's the essence of mental health, not having the tools to solve your problems. And I want to talk about this today, and I want to talk about how our leaders really need to wake up of this long-term damage they're doing to lives lost. And now let's talk about mental health. So I want to ask you a question. What is the cost in mental health of the long-term lockdown? Now, a lot of you know this day called Blue Monday. And you'll see this picture on the screen, and it's a day that doesn't get talked about enough. It's called Blue Monday. And it's actually the 3rd Monday in January, and it happens every year. And it's considered to be the most depressing day of the year. And that's due to a variety of factors, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. You've got a lack of light. It's cold. You got no holidays to look forward to. Christmas is over. It's a very bleak period. And that Monday is that Monday where you maybe have to face a week ahead at work, or even worse, working from home. And it's one of the most difficult days of the year, and it's actually only days away from when I speak right now. It's a very difficult time where we're all feeling depressed. And I was at home the other night after we put in a hard day here at London Real and Brian from Air, and I was speaking with my wife Mariana, who is an incredible, positive, bubbly woman. I still remember the first time I met her on Old Bond Street at Dolce & Gabbana, where she was working, and she was just this bubbling over being of positive energy, just all smiles and all positive attitudes. And, she was doing this as a single mother, struggling. So she's a very positive person. And she was saying, it's very hard right now with mental health. She says, I can't go to the theater. I can't see my friends. I can't take the boys out, to places I want to go. I got to catch myself every now and then because this is real and depression is real. And so I appreciate her being honest with me, and I hope she doesn't mind that I share this with you all today, because this is real. And you could be the strongest person out there. You could be the most positive person in the world, but this will get to you. By our last comment, that gentleman that made the last comment, it's hard. Sometimes I catch myself just even for a split second thinking, man, this is a dark day. It's cold outside. It's rough outside, and our government's putting us into another lockdown and closing people's businesses down and shutting down people's lives, and our kids can't go to school. And imagine what the 9 million citizens of my city are suffering from. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. And so I think we need to talk about it because we are facing a mental health crisis. And according to the ONS, which is the Office of National Statistics, depression in this country has doubled. And you can see this headline here from the Express and Star. Depression has doubled during the pandemic. These are measured from February pre-COVID lockdown days. And these are the current stats. And pay attention to what I'm about to tell you, because, you know, it's going to be hard for me even to say to you right now. Almost 1 in 5 adults in the UK, that's 19.2% of you and me, are currently experiencing some form of depression right now. And please type in the comments right now and tell me if that's you. Tell me right now. Tell me if it's you. Tell me your name, say yes, or tell me what you're going through right now. I really want to hear from you. That is a sobering statistic. 1 in 5 people out there is suffering from some type of depression. And that is up from 9.7%, which was more like 1 in 10 people back in February before the pandemic. That is a massive, massive increase, and it has dangerous, dangerous effects. Let's look at some of those. Eating disorders. Eating disorders, very tragic. Beat, which is a charity for people with eating disorders in the UK, has seen a 73% surge in people accessing them for help. And you can see this headline here from the BBC News going up here on the screen, and you see it. Coronavirus, living with eating disorders in lockdown. This is real, and this is only one of the many reasons or many effects of our mental health. And the truth is this, it's the increased time spent with family, the lack of gym facilities, which I want to talk about with Nick Wincombe, and an upset to the routine that is intensifying these eating disorder issues. But it gets worse. The crisis is hitting our young people the hardest. And you can see by this headline here, and again, this is hard to watch and hard to read, but we see a doubling in the number of urgent referrals for children with eating disorders. You can see this sharp rise in the number of children in England seeking help for eating disorders. That's by The Guardian itself. But it gets worse. Anxiety, loneliness, panic, and hopelessness. And please type in the chat right now and tell me if you're suffering from this, and tell me about it. You know, maybe you need someone to talk to. Maybe you've got no one to talk to. I'm here. So please type in the chat. You know, let's talk about this right now. We need to talk about it more. And when I tell you about some of these statistics, they're, again, very hard to listen to, but we all know it's real because we're all feeling this out there. And I'll put these up on the screen right now as I read them off, and these are the real facts, and again, this is hard to watch. 49%, which is half of the population in the UK, has felt anxious during the lockdown. 1 in 2 people. 21%, or more than 1 in 5 people, have felt lonely. 70%, or 1 in 6 people, have felt hopeless during the lockdown. And 12%, that's 1 in 8 people, have felt panicked during the lockdown. Look at those numbers. Those are very hard to believe. But it gets much worse, and this is suicide. Suicide is something tragic. It's something very hard to talk about. We just saw a comment coming through about that. It's a very, very hard thing to deal with and process because we all feel responsible. And here's a quote by one of our members of our London ambulance service. This came from October 28th, 2020, so just less than 3 months ago. And it said this, and I quote, this comes from our London ambulance service. And they say, quote, sadly, the number of suicide and attempted suicide incidents we attend are increasing. And wait for these numbers. Our crews now attend an average of 37 suicides or attempted suicides per day, compared to 22 in 2019 and 17 5 years ago. 17 5 years ago to 37 per day. Does that sound acceptable? Does that sound worth the price of a lockdown? These are shocking numbers indeed. And Samaritans, which is the largest mental health charity here in the UK, describing the trend, particularly amongst young people, as quote-unquote extremely worrying. And let me show some of the statistics that they have published. 10% is the proportion of people who have experienced suicidal thoughts. 19% of young people were more likely to report suicidal thoughts, and 21%, that's 1 in 5 unemployed people, reported suicidal thoughts. And again, that's a telling statistic right there. If you're unemployed, it doubles the chance of you having suicidal thoughts. Are you starting to see the connection here? Are you starting to see the connection? Lower economic output, lower employment, higher unemployment, worse mental health, more suicide thoughts. It's all linked, and you can see it here. And yet, your politicians don't talk about this every day. They show you the daily number. They put that in your face and say it's time to lock down because of this number over here. They're not talking about the long-term lives lost, the long-term mental health issues that we are experiencing right now. And so I just want to take just a short pause from that and talk a little bit about an incredible gentleman, one of our brothers up in the north, in Merseyside near Liverpool, and his name is Nick Whitcomb. And Nick is an incredible, incredible guy. Nick was minding his own business about 6 months ago. He owned a gym up in Merseyside near Liverpool. He had been using that gym to give back to his community. He's super passionate about physical health and mental health and about giving back and allowing the members of his community a place where they can go to improve their minds and improve their bodies. And what happened is, one day, 3 armed police officers came to his gym in Tier 3 lockdown and said, "We're going to close this gym." And Nick said, "No. This gym is important to keep open because of the mental and physical health of our citizens." And he fought back. And the truth is that the local politicians, their members of parliament, even the police officers told them that they believed in what they were doing. It was the law that had to change. And so Nick went and got 620,000 signatures on a petition for parliament. His case was heard in front of parliament, and he got 100 different media appearances all over the world based on him standing up to these armed police. And he is the one that that made sure that in Tier 3 lockdown, gyms can stay open in this country. So first of all, I want to salute Nick. Unfortunately, all that incredible work that Nick did is a moot point because we are in a Tier 5 national lockdown, so gyms are closed. But I want to salute Nick for fighting, and I also want to welcome Nick as the Brian for Mayor Health and Wellbeing Special Advisor. So we've appointed Nick as our Health and Wellbeing Special Advisor because what I see in Nick is someone who cares, someone who's willing to stand up for what he believes in, and someone who's willing to spend their life serving the people. That's what I like about Nick, and he embodies everything that we stand for here at London Real and everything that I stand for as your next mayor of London. So I want to welcome Nick aboard as our Health and Wellbeing Special Advisor. He is incredible. He puts out incredible information and science-based, scientific data every single day. He's got an incredible Instagram account. I repost a lot of his information, and we really appreciate his thoughts. And I want to play a short video from him. Before we do this, I want to ask your questions, and I want to get your input now on social media. First of all, do you think the current national Tier 5 lockdown, the strictest in UK history, is the solution to the virus, and why? Secondly, do you think the long-term death count due to lockdown will be bigger than the short-term amount of lives that we are being told are being saved? Third, does lockdown cause depression or mental health issues that will hurt us more in the long term, and are you suffering? Be honest with me and tell me why. And finally, do you think we need new leadership, new ideas? Do you think we need a leader that comes up with solutions and innovation and lead us in a new direction? So leave me your comments now, and I want to play you this short video, which is an excerpt from a full episode I did with Nick. You can watch on YouTube or on our website. Again, I really appreciate Nick. His heart is in the right place. He's got, honestly, an incredible mind to analyze data. And as Nick says, he takes the government's data and he uses that against them. He takes the Office of National Statistics, Public Health England, and he shows the government how their policies are wrong. And here's Nick speaking to me on London Real.
We need fresh blood in there. We need fresh ideas. We need people who are in touch with the people so that we can actually get things done. There is no point having the people leading the country who don't engage with the country. I think it's more likely that we can make change with new leadership than rather trying to, teach an old dog new tricks. And I know that sounds disrespectful to those that are in power now, but I think it's mostly a generational thing. There are people of that generation who do understand my generation, and that's fantastic. But they're few and far between, but they do exist, and it is important to note that. But I think the majority of the people in power that we have right now are not in touch with the real world. And as you were saying, the battle that you guys face in London with Sadiq and the lockdowns that are coming, it's a much different battle for you guys, obviously, because you're in the thick of it. But I really do think that London will stand up.
Again, just want to welcome Nick aboard as our special advisor. It's going to be incredible working with him. I really appreciate you, Nick, and I really value your input, your ideas, your passion, and your passion to serve. That's most important. I want to go to your comments now. Whatever platform you're on, please leave me a comment right now. I've got a lot of them here, so bear with me here. And again, it's important. If you're struggling with mental health issues, let's talk about them right now. That could be really helpful. Wes Burns on Instagram. Sorry, that was before. Malika Suarez on YouTube says, quote, love what I'm hearing. Thank you, Malika. It all makes sense, doesn't it? We've got Tambara Lilly on YouTube saying, quote, when you are mayor of London, you should remember that the rest of the country looks to you for direction. The state of the capital is a barometer for the rest of the country. And I totally agree with you, Tambara. It's so true. We believe that what we're going to do here in London over the course of the last 6 months of this year is going to change the world. I really do. I think we're going to show every major city in the world how it can be done. London will lead the world once again, like we have many times in history, when it comes to innovation, problem solutions, science, and just that great British indomitable spirit. That's what we're going to do. And I'm so excited to show the world, and I'm appreciating that you're seeing that as well. This is bigger than the 9 million citizens that we have in this city, although those people are very, very important to me. Next, I want to talk to hear a comment from Sassy Sale on Instagram that says, quote, this is the type of leadership that the world needs. Thank you, Sassy. I agree. I am frustrated with our current leadership. They've failed us. They've lied to us. I mean, they're ruining lives. They're costing hundreds of thousands of lives. Enough is enough. We need some innovation, some solutions, and some leadership. We've got Tony Hall on Instagram saying, quote, I will definitely vote Brian Rose for mayor of London. Thank you, Tony. Go to votefirst.london right now. Make sure you're registered. Anyone here in London or in England can go there and make sure you're registered. You'll get a letter in the post. And some of you say, Brian, I don't believe in the electoral process. Well, look, you can't wish me to become the next mayor. So if you believe in what I'm saying, you believe my policies, then do me a favor and just go with me here. Register to vote. Vote for me, and let's see what we can do in this process. I appreciate you. I got Akasha Temple on Instagram saying, quote, we need more people to run for mayor and prime minister in the same spirit as Brian Rose. We need tens and hundreds of thousands of Brian Roses. Thank you, Akasha. My wife might not agree that we need more of me, but I appreciate that. And I am all for this. I love new ideas. I love people that are honest with the citizens. I love science-based decisions. Honestly, I would love if there were thousands of people like me doing this. I would even love if someone did this before me. If someone was actually talking about these ideas and running for mayor, I could let someone else do this job and I could keep doing London Real. But the truth is I'm the only person who can beat the current mayor of London. I'm the only choice we have out there. So I have to go forward and make this happen. And that's what I plan on doing. Again, I've got Montessori Muma on Instagram saying, quote, Brian Rose for mayor. Thank you very much. I've got Nemesis on Instagram saying, yes, mayor. Will you run for prime minister also? Look, that's a long-term question. Let's stick with London right now. We got 9 million people that are facing some serious problems. Let's show the world what a great city can look like, and we'll talk about the other stuff at a later date. We've got TriFest on YouTube saying, quote, I wish you, Mayor, you, Brian, as a mayor. Thank you very much. Register to vote. We'll make it happen. Share this video. Giannak on Instagram says, quote, amazing for the people of London. Yes, I totally agree. Let's do this. We got Anthony on Instagram saying, Brian Rose is the GOAT. I assume that's GOAT, which is, I guess, greatest of all time, not the animal. He is the Elon Musk of politics. Thank you, Anthony. I've never heard that before, and I really appreciate it. You made my day, Anthony. Thank you. We got Gianni Diaz on Instagram saying, quote, as a foreigner, I welcome you, Brian, for mayor, unquote. Gianni, thank you so much. You know, some people ask me, or I see on the comments, an American is mayor of London? And it makes me laugh because our current prime minister was born in New York City. Winston Churchill's mother was American. So there's a whole history in this country of great leaders being either born an American or part American. And if you go back even thousands of years, this city and this country was made great by all of the people that came here, whether it was the Romans or the Celts or the Vikings. They all came here and brought something to it and made this place better. I was at Tower Hamlet speaking to the people about a month ago, and I said, raise your hand if you were born in another country. And about 1 in 3 people raised their hand. And I said, raise your hand if your parents were born in another country, and 2 in 3 people raised their hand. I guarantee if I had said, raise your hand if your great-great-grandparents were born in another country, everyone would have raised their hand. The truth is, London is made great because of our diversity, and I plan on adding to this great history as an American and a Brit as well. All right, let me go on with some of these other questions. We've got Ibby saying, quote, Brian talks a lot of sense. Man's a hero. Thank you very much. Look, when I take this city in a new direction, we can talk about that, but we've got a lot of work to do. Pino Bio on Instagram says, thank you, Brian Rose. Thank you very much. Adrian Hank on Instagram says, quote, official future mayor of London. Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate you. Twins on Instagram says, truth speaker. That's what we need. London mayor, yes. Let's go, Brian. There's a lot of O's in Brian. Thank you, Twins. I appreciate that. We're doing our best here. We got a big job to do. You saw those odds on Paddy Power. We got a lot to do. We need everybody mobilized on the ground, registering to vote, sharing these videos. That's the only way we're going to win. What else have we got? We got Audrey that says, love your work. Thank you very much. I got Stuart Rangel on YouTube says, quote, London has fallen. Brian for mayor. I agree. We are one of the worst major performing cities in the world right now. We are an embarrassment. Our country's performance is an embarrassment right now. We seriously, we should be holding our heads in shame, but we can turn that around within months if we start making the right decisions. And that's what I plan to do on May 6th as your next mayor of London. We've got EES on YouTube says, quote, eager to see your performance as mayor, maybe a model one like JFK or better. You can be the motivation. I agree. A mayor's job is to lead. And that takes on a lot of different areas. It's not just about making sure TfL doesn't go bankrupt, which needs doing. It's not about building housing that you promised you would build. It's not about stopping our teenagers from, knifing each other to death. All of those things our current mayor is failing in, but it's about leadership. It's about vision. It's about communicating with the people and showing them a new future, and that's what I plan on doing. A couple other people talking about their mental health challenges, and let's take this very seriously, and I appreciate you all being very candid with me. I appreciate it. I got Brad Sweeting on Instagram says, quote, I've been suffering mentally. I've been watching your information to put my mind straight. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate you. We got to stay positive. I am so optimistic on the future. I know we're going to change. So stay with me. Stay with me, brother. We're going to get there. I got Vicky Maddox on YouTube saying, quote, we need leaders that are into empowerment to the individual through education from young. My son is 19 and lives on the South Coast and has no contact with anyone during the first lockdown. He has been dreading another. It's true, Vicky. We know those mental health issues, and I appreciate you telling us about those. I got Redria Brown on YouTube saying, quote, I suffer from anxiety since the first lockdown. Thank you. I appreciate you being honest. This is a real issue. We've got HG on YouTube says, quote, yes, indeed, sir. Lockdowns have impacted my mental health severely. I was recovering from social anxiety just before the first lockdown. I appreciate that honesty. This is real, folks. If you're hearing this, and you're feeling the same way, you're not alone. We need to address this. There are serious damage being done by these lockdowns. Jamjar34 on YouTube says, quote, lockdowns haven't helped my mental health. The suicide rate is worrying. It's very worrying indeed. Simile Fitness on Instagram says, quote, lockdown has seriously hit everyone with mental health issues. It is soul destroying. My grandmother suffers with dementia, and she has got it so bad since this whole thing, I can hardly recognize her anymore. And Slimmy, I'm sending out our thoughts with you. We're wishing you strength. And this lockdown doesn't help anyone's mental health, from our young to people my age to even our elderly. We've got to stop this now. The damage, yes, it can't be quantified in a number on a great looking graph every day that's supposed to panic and alarm us. But the number is there. We feel it in our hearts. We feel it in our souls. And we know we've got to stop these lockdowns because the damage is real. We've got SMR on YouTube says, quote, cool volunteering, how? Very good question. You can go to my site, brianformayor.london. There's a volunteer button up top, or go to brianformayor.london/volunteer. Fill out a quick form, and boom, we're going to get you on the Brian for Mayor army out there. We really need your help. It's the only way we're going to win. Through people in the field, volunteers like you, the only way we're going to win. So thank you so much. And we've got S. Gomez on YouTube saying, quote, depression and anxiety is taking too many lives due to being locked down. I couldn't agree with you more. And finally, just a few final comments that people are saying about our current crop of politicians. We've got Arab Dude Production on YouTube says, quote, without a doubt, we need new leadership, Chuck Boris. And look, I've been open and honest criticizing the decisions our prime minister has made. They don't make sense. He's not thinking about our long-term health, mental health, or the economic damage that's being done. It's obvious. We've got Petra Mikat on Instagram says, quote, lockdown is not a viable or safe solution. It will increase death rates also by creating and aggravating economic and severe mental health issues. Petra, I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate you seeing that. I think we're all starting to see this clearly and see what is really going on. And the sooner we do, the sooner we can vote for the leadership that acts the way we feel. They're supposed to represent us. That's what a democracy is. That's not what we have here right now. I did a video the other day. The parliament voted, I think 534 in favor to 16 against the latest lockdown efforts. Let me ask you a question. If I did a national popular vote right now, who was in favor of lockdowns? Do you think it would be 90% in favor, like your elected representatives voted in Parliament? Do you think it would be? I don't think so. I think it might be 70%, 60%. It might even be less than 50% in favor if I ask people on the streets like you. And yet your elected officials, they seem to have their own agenda. You can change that by voting, and we can change that in London on May 6th. Lastly, I want to hear from Music and Magic on Instagram that says, quote, 1.5 million pounds on fireworks that could have been used in mental health support. And that's a sobering number, and he's referring to the amount of money that was wasted by your current mayor on a New Year's Eve celebration promoting his own political agendas. So he used taxpayer money for his mayoral campaign. That's probably illegal. And he also wasted 1.5 million pounds that could have gone for these eating disorders, could have gone for suicide prevention. How many lives could we have saved if he had used that money in the proper manner? I'm glad you saw that, Music. And finally, last comment, I think I might have said by Malka, and that is, quote, we all do need to get political. And it's true. We all need to take ownership and make sure we elect our officials. And I might have said that before, but I want to say that again because it's so important. Let me finish with my final point here, and then I want to tell you the solution to this. The final point that I haven't talked about, we've got to be honest about this, is I want to ask you this question. What is the cost when it comes to jobs and the economy of the long-term lockdown? What is the cost of this lockdown? Well, it's not hard to find it out because we can just look at some of these headlines. Let's look at this one, and I'll read it out for you. Double dip recession is on the way. Lockdown number 3 is set to cost us 390 million pounds a day after Britain shuts up shop, fueling fears of financial Armageddon. Financial Armageddon. Can you imagine? That's what we're facing. And it goes on even further. You can look at this headline, and that's this. This is shocking to actually hear. It says this: UK to face worst recession in 300 years as COVID crisis continues. Worst recession in 300 years. It's really, really hard to imagine. And, you know, I was taking a taxi home the other night, and I make sure I take the tube every morning. I take the Northern Line into work, and I take a taxi home every night because I want to support our taxi drivers here in London. I always take a taxi home, and I was talking to one of the taxi drivers, a black cab driver, and his name was Chase. And it's a big shout out to Chase. That's spelled C-H-A-C-E. And I get a lot of repeat drivers because there's not much business out there, and I go from the same place every night. And a lot of these drivers literally drive around all day and get 1 or 2 fares. And Chase was driving me home, and he said, Brian, he said, you're my second fare in 7 hours. And I think my fare was 20-some pounds. I mean, just think about that. He's riding around in a taxi cab that he spent 65,000 pounds on. Brand new electric taxi, some of these vehicles they're investing in. He's doing 1/10 the business that he was doing pre-lockdown. He cannot survive economically right now. But it gets worse. He said, Brian, he said, I need to get out of the house. I can't sit at home and watch another movie. I'm going out of my brain. I just rather would go out there and do something. That's the problem, what we don't see with this lockdown. People aren't doing anything. Same with unemployed. It's enough to drive your mental health insane. And unfortunately, even though Chase is out of the house, he's driving around alone in the front of these taxis. And this is something I spoke with Steve McNamara about, who is the chairman of the LTDA, one of the London Taxi Drivers Association. And he said, Brian, not only are our taxi drivers experiencing serious financial repercussions, and this goes for all taxi drivers, from Ubers to black cabs to minicabs. He said also they're alone most of the day, and they suffer some very serious mental health issues. So, and again, I want to appreciate that. And that's just an example of how that recession is really hurting real people in the field. And Chase, I appreciate you. And as I said to you in the taxi the other night, let's stay positive. I've got a lot of big changes I want to make here in London that supports you. I can't believe that the way that the current mayor disrespects taxi drivers in this city, makes you jump through hoops, doesn't acknowledge you as part of the TfL structure. It's ridiculous, and we're going to change all that when I become mayor. The truth is this, and this was said by Luke Johnson, which is one of the most prominent entrepreneurs here in London. He was one of the founders of Pizza Express, one of the board members of Channel 4, and he said to me during one of my episodes, he said, quote, He said, Brian, the economy is us and we are the economy. You cannot separate the two. And yet your current crop of politicians every day says you get a choice. You can have money in the economy or you can protect lives. We can't have both. You can have one or the other. And the truth is this. Not only can you have both, you must have both. There is no way of doing this because the economy is us and we are the economy. All of your interactions throughout the day are what causes the economy, and that helps you with your physical health and your mental health. Those are inextricably linked, and we can't choose one for the other, and we're seeing it right now. We've locked down the country, and we're seeing 560,000 lives are going to be lost. Depression rates doubling. We're seeing how these are always going to be linked, and they always will be linked. We are the economy. You must understand that. You cannot separate the two. You cannot separate wealth and health. If you have wealth with no health, it makes no difference. If you have health with no money, you actually have no health. You have no NHS. You have nothing to support your health. These are linked. And we've already seen some of the massive problems happening because of lockdown. And we've seen a record number of redundancies in the UK. 370,000 people lost their jobs between August and October. That is the highest in UK history. In history, right? And we know that causes issues. And you can see this headline from the BBC, the unemployment rate, how many people are out of work? It's asking that question. The truth is this, UK unemployment is likely to reach 2.6 million people because of this lockdown. 2.6 million people, according to the government's economic watchdog. All right? That would be 7.5% of working age people, 7.5% unemployment. And the Bank of England admitted that unemployment this year is very hard to predict, saying, quote, there's a chance it could rise as high as 10%. 10% unemployment is something this country hasn't seen since the days of Margaret Thatcher, since the days where this country was dying. We cannot see levels like that. We cannot. It's going to affect everything. But it doesn't stop with unemployment. Look at savings. How many of you are finding your savings are dwindling because of this lockdown? And it turns out that the Resolution Foundation found out that 54% of adults in families from the lowest income bracket were forced to borrow more to cover everyday costs like food and housing. So we've got no savings left. Their saving is dwindling right now. And also, nobody is spending. Look, UK new car registrations in 2020 have sunk to a 30-year low. Nobody is spending. Car registrations are down to a 30-year low. That just shows you no one is spending money, which means no economic activity. And finally, evictions. Since April, we've seen at least 90,000 people in the UK that have been threatened with homelessness. And more than half of these have already lost their accommodation, right? And this article in The Guardian that goes and shows on this, it says this, and I quote, charities say data shows a new cohort of homeless people who have slipped through the cracks despite protections such as the ban on evictions and a government scheme to house the homeless during the coronavirus crisis. So even though we've put through mandates and restrictions and we've postponed and put a hold on evictions, we still see them happening and we still see homelessness increasing. This is unacceptable. We have to acknowledge the massive economic costs that we are facing, the unemployment, the evictions, the loss in savings, and the pure economic damage that we're going to face, and that's all going to come back in months from now, years from now, decades from now. Scarring, long-term scarring of the economy is what our chancellor called it just months ago. And so I want to ask you finally these questions. Do you think the current national Tier 5 lockdown, the strictest in our history, is the solution to the virus, and why? Second, do you think the long-term death count due to lockdown will be bigger than the short-term amount of lives we are told are being saved by our politicians? Third, does lockdown cause depression or mental health issues that will hurt us more in the long term? And are you suffering too? If so, tell me how and why. And finally, do you think we need new leadership, new vision, and new ideas to take us into a new direction? I want to hear from you right now. I want to hear your answers. And after that, I really want to tell you what I have planned and what I have in store. Some incredible comments coming through here, and I want to just get through most of them and then wrap this thing up. We've got Angus Rhodes, 2006 on Instagram, says, Brian for mayor, thank you so much. I appreciate you. James Manning on YouTube says, quote, go on, Brian. Top man, proper freedom fighter. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I love you guys. Thank you. You guys give me so much strength that you have no idea. So I really appreciate that. Every comment makes a difference. Every person that stops me on the street and thanks me, every person that shares the video, I appreciate all of you. Abdul on YouTube says, quote, Brian Rose talking the hard talk. It's true, I am. We've got to be honest. You need a politician that gives you the hard answers. When I'm your next mayor of London, I'm going to tell you my decisions will cost lives, but I'm going to tell you my lack of decisions is going to cost more lives. We need someone who can be honest with us, and that's what I'm going to do with you. Kim Sanders Vox on Instagram says, quote, well done, Brian. Regards from Germany. Thank you so much, Kim. Flowers and Fiore on Instagram says, go, Brian. We got Chell Sahantas on Instagram saying, I appreciate you, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate you and everyone out there. I got Shay Yoga on Instagram says, quote, London is dead. Without you, there's no hope. Thank you, Shay. I think you're right, honestly. You know, and you know, the odds makers are saying it. I'm the only chance we have for not suffering through 3 more years of this madness. Imagine that. 2023, 2024, and you're still in lockdown. That's what you get if you don't get out there and vote for me. What else? We've got Erica Holly Fit says, I wish you were leader of the UK. I appreciate that, Erica. I think the changes we make in London will change the rest of the UK. So I appreciate you. Erica Reck on Instagram says, quote, go on, Brian, show them. Let's show them together. Let's do that. K33 on Instagram says, quote, yes, amazing. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kay. Brooke S. Series on Instagram says, quote, Brian, you are amazing. Thank you for doing what you do. You have an amazing perspective. Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate it. You know, I'm just bringing the science and the data. It's not complicated. Just no one is talking about this stuff, even though it's right in front of our faces. So thank you, Brooke. And Jacone on Instagram says, quote, 2021 looks good with you as mayor. And I agree. I'm so optimistic for this year because we can make quick decisions and get results fast. Look at my policies. 50,000 new homes by Christmas of this year. That's what I'm promising. And I've already got people working in the background, top-level architects and developers that are going to make it happen. All right, announcement coming soon. Let's talk about mental health challenges, and I appreciate you all being honest about what you're suffering right now. We got Sarah Newell, 157 on Instagram saying, I've been told I can't work due to my mental health, but barely afford to feed my family as half my money is taken from me. Feel like such a letdown. And Sarah, I appreciate you being honest. Sarah, it's not your fault, okay? It's not your fault, all right? So you've done nothing wrong here, all right? Your government and your elected officials and your politicians have failed you. They have put you in a difficult situation where you can't leave your house and you can't go to work, all right? So I need you to stay positive. I need you to focus on daily tasks, all right? Try to do something that's effective. Try to serve other people around you and try to move forward. That's the best thing we can do right here. Have hope, and let's get some new leadership in place, all right? I appreciate you. Stay strong. Kim Kimio on YouTube says, quote, I am drinking more. I feel lonely. I'm going crazy, and I don't feel good. Kim, oh, that's really hard to read, you know? I know there. I've been there. I've been in that dark hole. I've been in that hole of addiction. It's not a nice place to be. I will tell you this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you. I've been in the darkness, and I've seen the light as well. All right? A lot of people are drinking more. They're in these lockdowns. They figure, why not? I got nothing better to do. There are better solutions than drinking. There are solutions to the mental health crisis. You can call the Samaritans. You can reach out to people. And we can also fight back and end this ridiculous lockdown. We've got to move forward. We've got to help each other. I appreciate you talking about this. Reach out to a friend. We're going to find you help. Reach out to the Samaritans. They are excellent. And stay positive and find a solution. I've been there, all right? And I thought I could never get over my addictions, and I did. I did it by staying positive, by serving others, and by finding solutions and finding a daily practice that served me. So I'm confident you can as well. Stay strong. Simon Carter on YouTube says, quote, life has been exceptionally difficult. I'm told by my carers to take walks. I'm too bewildered by the outside. It's foreign to me. Outside is like a bad sci-fi movie. Simon, I totally appreciate that. When I go out on the streets, I'm like, this is like a bad movie. It is. And everyone says, take a walk. That's not the solution. You know, our special advisor, Nick, was flabbergasted when the government said use baked bean tins to work out at home. He said, this is not a solution. The solution is to stop the lockdown. That's what we need. And so I appreciate what you're going through, Simon. We are going to find a way so you'll have more options. All I can say is take every day one step at a time. Find people to reach out to. Find a physical practice. Find a mental practice. Find a way to stay positive, and then tell your leadership how you're feeling and tell them that this isn't acceptable. Email your member of parliament. Write your mayor. Write your local council and say, I don't agree with this. This is driving me crazy. Very important to do. Monica, 82, on Instagram says, quote, soon it could be too late. I lost a friend who committed suicide last year and few who attempted suicide. We need change. Monica, I apologize, and I'm sending you our condolences. No one wants to lose someone to suicide because we all feel responsible, because we are responsible, and our leaders should feel responsible. They have to take responsibility for this increase in deaths. We've got to stop this. Monica, let's send this message out to our leaders. Let's stay positive and let's fix this situation. Miss Louise Woodley on Instagram says, quote, get the gyms open. Why is physical health being ignored? I couldn't agree with you more. And our friend Nick Whitcomb in the North is a champion of this, and I back him 100% on this. We've got to get our gyms open. We have to admit and understand that they only are responsible for 1.7% of COVID transmissions, and yet they're one of the first things to go during lockdown. They should be the one thing that stays open during lockdown. If they really cared about our health, they would do that. But they're focused on another metric and another agenda, which has nothing to do with our long-term health or economic survival. We got Isabel Little on YouTube says, quote, like so many others, I haven't met my grandson yet. Wow, that's hard, Isabel. She goes on to say, I live in England, they're in Scotland. I'm so sorry, I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine. We've got to stop this. Children and grandparents and all of us need human connection, and we need to have the right to choose if we want to take the risk for that connection. We all have the right to choose right now what to put in our bodies. We can drink, we can smoke, we could jump off a building right now if we wanted to. And yet we can't choose to leave our own house. We can't choose to provide for our families. We can't choose to send our children to school. Does that sound right to you? It doesn't sound right to me. Let's change this. True Tennis 365 on Instagram says, quote, got worse when the gym shut, now depressed most days. I couldn't agree with you, True. That's why we want to get our gyms open right away, and we want to make sure they never close down. They're an essential part of our health service. They're an essential part of our national health, and we need to make sure they stay open, and Nick Whitcomb has been talking tirelessly about this. Josh Farr on Instagram says, yes, I feel like there is no way out of this situation. I've never felt so down, and I'm only 18. That's hard to hear, Josh, that you're only 18 and feeling that way. All I can say is we got to stay positive. There is a way forward. I've seen the future. Trust me, I've visualized what London looks like with new leadership, and it is an incredible place. We are going to be back better than ever before, but we've got to stay positive. We've got to let our politicians know this is not acceptable. Tell your friends and make sure your vote counts. Thank you very much, Josh. Kaz Knapp on Instagram says, yes, it's true. I've never suffered with anything and did fine last year, but since Christmas and New Year, it's been hard with a breakup, working from home, living alone now, no gym either, which really helped me. We need change. Thank you, Kaz. I appreciate that. Let's be honest. We're all suffering right now. We're all suffering. Even those of us that thought we were super strong, we're all suffering right now. We've got to take this seriously. We've got to work on our mental health and our mental practice. Next, we got Pippa Petal on Instagram that says, quote, yes, I am normally a very bubbly person, positive attitude and smiles. Now I'm struggling with mental health and eating disorder and increased alcohol consumption. Does this sound like anybody else out there? Is anyone else like Pippa? Put a comment in there. A lot of us feel like that. You're locked at home. There's nothing to do. You can't go outside. All of a sudden, you pop open that bottle of wine and you're in a bad situation. Your family is watching you. You're not being a leadership. This is not acceptable. All I can say is stay strong. Be disciplined in your mental and physical practice and tell your leaders this is not okay. All right? Reach out to someone if you need help. We can get through this, and I appreciate your honesty. Nanette on Instagram says, quote, it's time to open up and share our experiences so others know we're not alone. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help. I'm a psychotherapist. Therapy does help. Talk to somebody. I couldn't agree more. And Nanette, we have to reach out to people right now. I know it's not always the British thing to talk about your problems. I know it is to stay strong, and I appreciate that. But, you know, I've done 2 or 3 documentary films where I talk about my own failing, my struggles with addiction and overdose, my struggles with mental health, with trying to be a good parent. I'm constantly struggling, all right? And it's important to talk about that stuff, and it's important to move forward together. A few last comments before I talk about my new direction for London. We've got Shawnee on YouTube saying, quote, sir, if you mean what you say, you've gotten my attention, intention, and heart. Thank you. Shawnee, I'm not doing this because I'm bored. I'm doing this because this means a lot to me. I put my life on hold, my business on hold, my family life on hold, in order to become your next mayor of London. I am putting everything into this. I am deadly serious about this, and I want to make change here in London, and I plan on doing that on May 6th with your help. So thank you very much. Mazatrim on Instagram says, yeah, unemployment is going to be horrible. People will lose their businesses, jobs, and homes. And what happens then? Mental health deteriorates, and we've got more problems. We've got to stop this now. Wicked Woods on Instagram says, quote, I go by the old saying, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But our current system is broke and it needs fixing. I agree. We need new change. This two-party system where they sign off on each other's failures and they give you a quote-unquote choice every 4 years or 5 years, it's ridiculous, all right? It's not okay. It's career politicians. It's backroom deals. It's not acceptable. I choose policies based on the best ideas. I've got no party telling me what to do. I've got no corporate financing telling me what to do. I choose the best ideas, and that's what's going to win this race. Marcel Nanenti on Instagram says, hi, Brian, please fix London traffic too. I've got a whole plan to do that. Go to my Transport First policy on my website. It's all in detail. I've got specific plans to, make sure our Transport for London doesn't go bankrupt again, thanks to our current mayor. I've got plans for traffic. I've got plans for parking, plans to support our taxi drivers, and I got green initiatives as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Logan on Instagram says, Brian, you have to get rid of these ridiculous lockdowns. Amen. That's my plan. Get London back to work. I want to talk about that shortly. Henry B on Instagram says, Brian, you should become the next prime minister for life and get rid of these party systems. The whole system needs a revamp. A proper clean start is needed. Time to clean the house. Henry, I couldn't agree with you more. It is time to clean the house. The more and more I learn about politics, the more and more it disgusts me. They have their own agendas that are in complete conflict with the citizens of this city and the citizens of this country. I'm tired of it. It's unacceptable for me. I'm going in to clean house and make sure that the citizens are served above all else. What an incredible concept, right? A democracy. A couple other comments here. We've got Refil Yoga on YouTube says, quote, because my grandmother can't leave the house, all she does is sit and watch the news all day long, making her more and more anxious and completely paranoid. It's true, Refil. The mainstream media and governments have one agenda. They weaponize fear and use it against you. Let me repeat that. The mainstream news and government have one agenda. They weaponize fear and use it against you. They trigger that amygdala in the back of your brain, and they get you to panic when they throw out alarming statistics and they get you to comply to lockdown. And that's what we're seeing happen over and over and over again. And it's not acceptable. All right, it's not acceptable. We have to move forward. Just Think on YouTube says, quote, every Londoner needs to hear this and vote. I couldn't agree. Please share this. Please register to vote. Please make sure you vote on May 6th. We can make a difference and put London in a new direction. And finally, I just want to say, on May 6th, you're going to get a choice. And if you don't exercise that right, then you are complicit in whatever leader stays. And maybe you're going to get 3 more years of this. And if that's true, if you decide not to vote, or if you decide to vote for someone else, you are responsible for these lockdown measures for 3 more years. You are responsible for the lives lost. You are responsible for the mental health crisis. You are responsible for the unemployment, for the evictions, for everything. Yeah, I mean that seriously. So take 5 minutes, go to votefirst.london and register to vote. And when you get that in the mail, go to your calendar and mark off May 6th. Pick a time of the day. Could be in the morning at 8, could be in the evening, and go and vote. Go and vote. That's so, so very important right now. I want to finish and talk about my solution. Because again, I hate people that complain. I only want to talk to people that offer solutions. So I've told you the problems. I've told you the shortcomings. Now I have a solution for you, and that is this. On May 6th, I plan on becoming your next mayor of London. I can only do this with your help. It's going to be a very difficult battle. This current incumbent mayor is stuck in. He's dug in. He's got a party with hundreds of years behind him. He's got infrastructure. He's got millions of pounds in financing. And they know that you're going to vote for the same party your parents voted and for your grandparents. They know that. They're not even trying to get your vote. Have you seen him out there talking to people in the public? No. Have you seen him with detailed policies of how he's going to fix this city? Have you seen him say anything about lockdown except fear-mongering and scaring you? That's all he does, because he knows he has your vote. He knows you're going to vote for him. So why should he try? He's thinking, what am I going to do in 2024? That's what he's thinking now. But if that's not acceptable to you, then you have to be proactive and change it. You have to share this message. Maybe volunteer for us. Register to vote. Tell your friends and family about this. Explain to them why we need a change. And that's what I plan on doing. My very most important policy is this: getting London back to work. That's what I'm going to start doing on May 7th. And it means this. It means we must stimulate, and this is all on my website, by the way, key sectors right here in London, such as arts, the hospitality, and I want to encourage the safe return of office workers. This means in the city where I used to work at our major financial institutions. I want to also implement science-based protocols citywide to safely get people back to London to work, shop, and visit. Even our own domestic tourism from people around the UK could kickstart the London-based economy. Forget about international. Just the UK-based travel could give ourselves a massive boost. And yet, what does our current mayor does? He uses scare tactics to keep people out of our city. It's criminal. As an entrepreneur, I understand the struggles faced by small and medium-sized businesses, which, by the way, make up 98% of the small and medium enterprises. The small businesses do as well. And I understand that. Our current mayor of London never run a business in his life, right? Let's be honest. You know, he's a lawyer, right? He speaks legalese and passes the buck. That's what he does. He doesn't understand it is challenging to be an entrepreneur. He doesn't understand that entrepreneurs need to be supported to create jobs and to create economic activity. So I'm going to prioritize that and make sure that we improve the commercial landscape in every aspect of our city and for the 9 million inhabitants. And again, I want to talk about my key policies. First of all, I'm going to create a 6-month post-lockdown congestion charge holiday. I'm going to remove this massive tax of the congestion charge that keeps people from coming into London and spending. Do I want more cars in London? No, but I realize that in the short term, we've got to kickstart our businesses. So bring in as many people as we can to the city, and let's get these businesses off life support and back in business. That's what I want first. Later, I have intelligent plans to phase out those cars and bring in the green initiatives. Next thing I want to do is create a 6-month post-lockdown business rates holiday by removing business rates across the board for small and medium-sized enterprises in London. That means cut the taxes. You cannot revive a business and pay taxes at the same time. Any basic economics professor will tell you that, and I will tell you that too. Next, I want to stimulate key sectors with expanded financial packages, specifically restaurants, cafes, nightclubs, retail, and the hotel sector. They must be stimulated. Next, I want to encourage the return of office workers to the world's financial capital by working with the top global financial services brands. These are companies I used to work for in the city. I want to meet with the CEOs and I want to meet face-to-face with them and say, what's it going to take to safely get back 25% of your employees? The healthy ones, the ones that are younger, the ones that we can safely get back in the city. What's it going to take? Let's make it happen now. That's what I mean by innovation. What does our current mayor of London do? Throws his hands up, panic, fear, and death. He has no solutions. Next thing I want to do is I want to implement new science-based protocols for retail establishments to deal with COVID-19 responsibly and stay in business. Let's be honest, the hospitality sector is only responsible for 3% of COVID transmissions. 3%. Why? Because they know how to keep things clean and safe. It's their business. They deal with food for a living. They have followed all the protocols. Let's get them back to business. Very, very important. Next, I want to safely open up our theaters, our museums, our concert arenas, and our stadiums. That's how we get people back in London and back to work. We can do it safely. I know we can, but we just need leadership. Next, I want to promote outdoor seating and the use of street parking spaces for all retail and hospitality businesses in London, free of charge. From the local councils for 6 months, I went out to one of these businesses called Caffeine out in Fitzrovia months ago, and I met with Peter Dorr-Smith, the founder of that coffee shop chain. And I spoke to him and he said, Brian, look at these seats out on the street. And he had set up 12 seats in the street. He said, the council is trying to charge me something like £1,000 for each one of these. He said, this is ridiculous. I can't make money. I'm barely trying to stay in business and employ 25 people. Peter, I would give you those spaces for free, and I would give all of the retail and hospitality businesses those spaces to promote the economy. It sounds like a small thing. It's a massive thing, and it shows the government supports businesses. And finally, I'm going to state the obvious, but again, these days the obvious seems to be innovative. I'm going to get our children back to school safely. This is going to promote all of the businesses around the schools. This is going to allow parents to get back to work. This is going to allow teachers to get back to work. It's ridiculous and unacceptable what we are doing right now by not having our children in schools. We all know it. Let's get our children back to school. And so those are my plans. I want to prioritize commerce and trade. I want to reinvigorate this city and make it a world-class place to live and to visit and to work. We know that when you strengthen the economy, all things are strengthened, including revenues that pay for the TFL, including mental health because people have something to do, including people's savings. They go up. Everything strengthens when you strengthen the economy. And I want to work with experts from the scientific and the business communities, and I am confident that we can accomplish this mission to get London back to work. But it doesn't stop there. I have 11 other detailed policies that you can watch with videos, right? All on my website, brianformayor.london. No other candidate for mayor has even outlined their policies. Why? Well, there's only one that matters, and he already assumes he has your vote. Why should he bother working? He's making plans for 2024. I have detailed policies, and I'm working with key members of this community, high-level members, on how we can implement those policies. And I'll be honest with you, I've been shocked by the number of high-level people that contact me and say, Brian, I want to help. I want to help. These are leaders in the industry that say, I just want to help because I've never heard a politician that wants to implement the best idea and wants to do the best for London. And I can see in you, Brian, that you care about the people and you want to help. And so I am so optimistic for the future. I have 11 other policies on my website, which include putting science first. Let's use the data I talked about today to make our policy decisions, and putting our health first. One of the reasons that we brought on Nick Wigcomb as our health and well-being advisor, special advisor, is to promote health and well-being from the ground up. Don't wait until someone is dying from a comorbidity and needs to go to the NHS. Why not allow them to work on their physical health by opening a gym? Why not promote their mental health early on? We need to invest in our health proactively, and this is one of my many, many policies. And so that's all detailed on my website. I just want to say in closing this. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Please share this video if it resonated with you, because I can't do this alone. I am going all in on this process, if you can't imagine. I think I've probably spoken here for over an hour right now, and I still have energy. My energy comes from you because I feel like I've been given this opportunity to serve this city that's given me so much. London made me as a man, as an entrepreneur, as a human being. It gave me everything, and I owe this city my life, almost quite literally. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to give back to this city, to the 9 million people here that live here and work here, and to make it a world-class city once again. I want to lead the world, and I'm confident that we can by the end of the year if I'm elected mayor on May 6th. But this is going to be a difficult battle. The incumbent, he's dug in. He's dug in like a tick, and we're going to literally have to do everything in our power to get him out, which means I'm going to need you to volunteer. I'm going to need you to register to vote. I'm going to need you to talk to your friends and family about this guy, Brian Rose, right? Who wears these suits and has this show called London Real, who's got an accent from America. No. This guy actually has the solutions. You need to talk to them about that and say, look at the current mayor. Do you like him? No, we hate him. This guy has great ideas. Just listen to him for 5 minutes. And I guarantee they're going to be on board for this new direction. We can only get there together, and we're going to have to fight for this. And if we don't, we've got 3 more years of this nonsense, 3 more years of lockdown, 3 more years of mental health crisis, 3 more years of unemployment, 3 more years of evictions and losses in our savings. It's hard to think about, and it's something that we need to change right now. So please go register to vote. Go to votefirst.london. Make sure that on May 6th you vote for your next mayor of London. Make sure that you're a part of this, that you share this, and you join me. And let's make London a world-class city once again. I'm so excited. I feel like when I move into City Hall on May 7th, we're all coming together. I don't know if I can fit everybody, but in spirit, we're all there. And every day I pledge to you that I'm going to make London a great place to live, to work, to visit. I promise you, no stone will go unturned. I will work tirelessly in the spirit to serve the people, period. And I'll communicate with you every single day. And you can tell me how I'm doing. But I promise to keep communication, to keep listening, and to keep serving you. Finally, I just want to say thank you. It's an honor to represent you as your next mayor of London. It's an honor. Every day I'm thankful. It's a lot of work. It's stressful. It's crazy. I get a lot of criticism. People call me some nasty names, but it's all worth it because I really believe in this change. I believe in what we're going to do. It's going to take London in a new direction. I honestly think it's going to take Britain in a new direction. I think it could take the world in a new direction. Imagine if New York City, if Madrid, if Paris, if Tokyo, if Cape Town, if Buenos Aires, If Tokyo saw what we do in the next 6 months or the end of this year, imagine if they're like, how come we don't do it like London? How come we can't do what London does? We could literally be a beacon of hope for a world right now that's pretty down about all these various lockdowns because no one is giving the solution. We can do it in London. Let's make it happen. I need you at the polls on May 6th. Share this video. Tell your friends on May 7th. Let's make history. Thank you very much. I love you guys. I appreciate your support. I'll see you next Friday on Real Deal. Take care. At London Real, we believe that individual transformation can change the world. Join us and start your journey today.